So one of the other things that we did while we were on Kodiak, especially once the whole family got there, was we took a float plane, very much like this one you're seeing take off here. It's called a de Havilland Beaver. Takes off from various shallow waterways around Kodiak. The one we took is actually coming up right here. That's the de Havilland Beaver that we were on. Kodiak Island is the second largest island in the United States after the big island of Hawaii, and about 20% of it or less is where the town of Kodiak is, and the Coast Guard base and some other things, a couple of state parks. But 80% of the island is a wildlife preserve into which there are almost no roads, and certainly no roads that you can navigate in a standard car or without experience. And so the only way to really see the whole island, I realized, was to take a float plane ride. So this is the float plane pulling in the day that we got on it. You'll notice that they kind of pull it around with some ropes to spin it backwards to the dock. This float plane tour was a couple of hours long, with an experienced pilot who had actually grown up on the island as the son of a fisherman. We took a tour down the southern coast or southeastern coast of Kodiak, down to some lakes that have cabins on them at the south end of the island, and then flew across the island and across the mountain range in the middle of Kodiak, and then we flew back up to the northwest edge to Strawberry Island and then back to Kodiak. This is us taking off. First thing we did from takeoff is do kind of a loop around and go down past the city of Kodiak, off on your right here, and the Coast Guard base, which is coming up on the right. And just past this on the left was the lake that we hiked past on the previous day, off in the distance. And then in the distance you can see the snow-capped mountains that we're headed down. We're moving kind of northeast to southwest in this part of the flight. So Kodiak's a big, long, skinny island that has a range of mountains that run northeast to southwest down the center of it. And they seem to have snow on them, well, this is July, so they have some amount of snow on them most of the year. I don't think there are any glaciers on Kodiak, but I could be wrong about that. Our pilot pointed out to us that many of these lakes are numbered based on their altitude, and his float plane can land on many of them in case we wanted to come back someday and do some backcountry hiking. I am quite interested in that. Some of the peaks were off to our right in this one, and these are the tallest peaks on Kodiak. I'll try to put some information up here about them, but I want to say they're up around 4,000 or 4,500 feet of elevation. But it's not a very big island, so it's a very steep climb up to those. There are some trails both up to the peaks and in through the valleys, and some guides who take folks up in there both to hunt and to take photographs and to camp and things. So I don't think I'd climb quite up into these altitudes on Kodiak, but it was really beautiful to fly over. This is one of the lakes where they have constructed a salmon ladder where sometimes you can see bears. We did not see any Kodiak bears this day nor any other day while we were on Kodiak. But as we rounded the southern part of the island here, we did get to see evidence of some bighorn sheep and some other things as we began to fly up the western edge of the mountains. Kodiak Island is a part of the Aleutian archipelago, and so as such it's got a lot of very deep bays cut into it, and a lot of small islands off the edges of it. And you can't see in these photographs very much, but a lot of the little valleys you see cut into the side of that rock formation would have waterfalls on them pretty regularly throughout this flight. It was really quite spectacular, even from an airplane. And as isolated as this area is, our pilot shared that he actually grew up out here in this part of the island as the son of a fisherman. His father and mother still actually fish their family's permitted area off of this edge of Kodiak. And I couldn't narrate this as we flew because the plane was obviously much too loud to talk over. But we had headphones on, so he was narrating the whole time, which was really wonderful. And we eventually ended up at Strawberry Island, which is a small island just north of Kodiak Island, where there are some other lodges and some hunting and fishing opportunities that I might visit in the future. It's an amazingly pristine wilderness area. And you have to take float planes or boats into a lot of the kind of lodges up on Strawberry Island and out on some other of the more remote places. But once you get there, the hunting and fishing is really good, and the water's clear, and it's really quite beautiful. We, of course, only got to fly over it on this trip, but this was our first time to Kodiak. So we were there visiting our nephew who relocated there a couple of years ago, with my wife and her family, and it was a really wonderful trip and some good quality time with family in the wilderness. I believe that one of these two islands is called Long Island, and that's actually where we went fishing on the fishing charter that we had been on a couple of days before this flight, where we caught 150 pounds of fish in 3 hours. Cod, blackfish, and some halibut. Really good. Mrs. Data pulled like a 35-pound halibut out of one of these channels. And I think that's the city Kodiak in the distance, and now we're coming in for a landing about 6 o'clock at night as the sun was starting to go down a little bit. All in all, it was a really enjoyable way to get to see the parts of Kodiak that otherwise we would probably have not gotten to see.